Hello everyone, and today we're back into another top 5, and we're going to be ranking all the electric types from worst to best. So there are 9 electric types we'll be ranking. They are all fully evolved except for Elephage. The reason why I added Elephage into the list because I really wanted to talk about Elephage and Phage now separately. So yeah, 9 electric types, let's rank them from worst to best. So the worst electric type in Loomian Legacy is going to be Iguana. People might be shocked that this is the worst electric type in Loomian Legacy, and it's not just because its design is awful. It's because I just don't think it has the greatest offensive typing. It is a very good range tank, which is something that it does have, and it actually is decent. It can tase opposing Loomians, and it does have setup, and it can even rejuvenate. The problem is that it can't hit anything. I mean, light electric is one of the worst offensive typings in the entire game, and let's just say there's a little thing called plant types and earth types that can kind of wall Iguana. Yes, light neutrally hits earth, but you only have like 80 range attacks, so you can't even really hit earth types anyway. Not to mention that it has no other moves other than those moves. It does technically have earth coverage in the terms of melee attack, but even then, plant types still resist it. You can't hit plant types, you can't hit earth types. Not good. Not to mention that there are other range tanks that actually hit harder than Iguana. And while it is a solid pivot option, it just isn't the best Loomian in the world. All the other electric types are way better than Iguana, and it unfortunately has the number 9 spot. Number 8 onto this list is actually going to be Joltooth. Joltooth just narrowly avoided the worst spot, but it is a very solid Loomian. It has a pretty solid offensive typing, Electric Ancient being very good. It does have a really high melee attack stat, a decent-ish speed stat, not really, honestly. It could be good for a Bane of Haste user, and it does have Clay Slap for coverage. Not to mention that with the ambush ability, it can really threaten some really overpowered Loomians. Like Tyrex can't really swap in because Clay Slap. And just, if you have a great matchup, Joltooth can be really good. But the problem is that you're almost never in a great matchup with Joltooth. So it's really hard to fully utilize the ambush ability. Not to mention that, while it does have solid bulk on both sides, it doesn't have the greatest bulk, has no way to heal. It does have setup, but other than that, it doesn't really have anything going with it. It hits pretty hard, but that's kind of it. It kind of does not know what it wants to be, and that's why it is number 8. But it is better than Iguana because it can hit plant types. Oh my, what a concept. It can hit plant types for neutral damage. And since it has 126 attack, it can chunk them really hard. Number 7 onto this list is actually going to be Elephage. So yes, Elephage is number 7 on the list. It's above 2 other electric types despite being a pre-evolved Loomian. So why is this thing number 7? 110 speed, 125 range attack, with very solid bulk. Well, it doesn't really have bulk, but it has a pretty high HP stat. And since this is a pre-evolved version, that 55 melee attack and range defense can actually be used to be increased by Drop of Youth, which is awesome. Not to mention that I love Elephage's move pool. There are so many different ways you can run an Elephage. You can run a pivot. You can run a pivot one. You can run one with Final Ruse. You can run Rant as a range defensive one. There's a lot of different ways you can actually run Elephage, and a lot of the sets that you run on Elephage can be used really well. You can run a Teardown variant. You can run a Magnify set. You can run an Energize set. There's a lot of different ways you can run Elephage, and even though it doesn't hit plant types, it does have Rant. Rant does hit plant types super effectively, and even though it's a very weak move, that's at least something, unlike a certain Iguana. So, yeah, a lot of these points are going to be made once we talk about Phage Nut, but yeah, Elefhage's still very good, and it might honestly be better offensively compared to Phage Nut, and that's why it is number 7. Number 6 onto the list is actually going to be Hunder. Hunder might be one of the best late game sweepers in the entire game. I mean, has insane coverage. I mean, it has fire, ice, electric, and dark. That is amazing coverage. And even though it doesn't hit that hard, with the power draw ability, it makes it actually hit hard. So, and since all your moves are biting moves, yeah, it really works really well. Not to mention that all the chomping moves also have a chance to flinch. And the elemental chomping moves can cause a burn, freeze, or paralyze. So, there's a lot of stuff going with Hunder. If you have really good RNG, Hunder can absolutely clean up. And if you use it late game, you can actually clean up opposing teams, which is awesome. This sounds really good, but the reason why it's not in the top 5 is because there are a lot of melee tanks. I mean, there's a certain Obsidian that exists. Tundralin can wall you, even though you have Blaze Chomp. Surkame can do some nice damage, even though you hit it super effectively. And while it does hit a lot of Loomians very hard, it doesn't usually one-shot many Loomians from full health. So you kind of want to use this as a late game cleaner, and that's it. You don't want to use it early. You don't want to use it midway. You need to use this late game in order to fully utilize it, which does limit its potential. But despite that, though, Hunder can do some really good work, and that's why it's number 6 on the list. We have reached our top 5, and number 5 onto the list is actually going to be Zulong. Yes! I am shocked that I put Zulong this high, but I have a few reasons why. It has double pivot, it has Zip Zap and Ancient Roar pivot. And while, yeah, like Joltooth, it doesn't really hit many Loomians, but it does hit pretty hard. And with Ancient Roar, you can actually weaken the opposing Loomian. So if there's a counter like Tyrex, if there's a counter like Eliguana, if there's a counter like Venolin, you can weaken them and then go into your best Loomian to deal with them, which is awesome. That is really good for semi-bulky teams. Not to mention that with Zip Zap, you can deal a lot of damage. And Zulong actually does a solid amount of damage, which does make Zulong really good at all moments in the game. The reason why it's above Hunder is because it can be used at any moment in the game and it can do well. Like, you can use it as a lead, you can use it as a late game cleaner, you can use it mid game to weaken the attack of the opposing Loomian. It's really good, not to mention that Zip Zap is awesome. So you can actually use this as a boots user to outspeed everything again. You can also run the melee Zulong, and while the melee Zulong isn't that good, it's just another option that can make Zulong really scary, and that's why it deserves top 5. There are a lot of flaws at Zulong, like, you know, there's a lot of range tanks in the game, but even then, the fact that it has Zip Zap and Ancient Roar puts it number 5 onto the list. Number 4 onto this list is actually going to be Phage. So, remember all the points I had with Elephage, which, you know, a lot of the creative move sets, pretty fast, hits hard, ramp for coverage for plant types? Well, all of those points are for Phage as well, but with even more. I mean, it actually has melee defense, meaning that it's actually really good as a defensive Loomian. And even offensively, it could still do some work with Magnify, and with a 95 speed stat, while it's not as fast as Elephage, it can still outspeed a lot of threats. This is a really good Loomian. And defensively, 95 speed is extremely fast offensively. Not to mention that it does have double pivot, has ramp for range attackers, and the fact that it's pure electric means that it only has 2 weaknesses, water and earth. Phage might be one of the best defensive Loomians in the entire game, which is awesome. Although, it doesn't quite reach the top 3. There is another electric-type Loomian that is number 3 that is actually extremely close to Phage. But there is one reason why the number 3 Loomian is better than Phage. And it's mainly because, you know, it can't really hit plant types that much. It does have ramp, but other than that, it doesn't really hit plant types that much, and doesn't have the best offensive typing offensively. Although, defensively, this thing is amazing. Number 3 onto the list is actually going to be Ikazune. These are very similar Loomians. I mean, you have Ikazune and Phage. I mean, they both pretty much have a similar speed stat, both pretty much hit just as hard, both has double pivot. So, on paper, these seem like carbon copies. But in reality, Ikazune is way better offensively because it can hit those plant types super effectively with Fire Breath. It's a fire electric type, meaning you can actually hit those pesky plant types that usually swaps into pivot. Yes, you can hit those plant types super effectively, and you can one-shot them most of the time. And while, yes, this is quad weak to water and earth and not just normally weak, and defensively it is pretty bad. I mean, this is pretty much the polar opposite to Phage. I mean, Phage is amazing defensively, and Ikazune is awesome offensively. But since you can actually pivot out, and it does have a very good speed stat, when combined with boots, Ikazune most of the time cannot take damage. If you have a Loomian alive, pivoting with Ikazune is extremely scary, especially with that 139 range attack. And that's why it actually made the top 3 for electric types in the entire game. Number 2 onto the list is actually going to be the Toad, Metatoad. There is a few reasons why Metatoad made number 2 onto this list. It's mainly because of a very solid bulk. I mean, it has very good bulk on both sides. And, of course, specialization. If you have one move with specialization, there are almost no swap-ins for a Metatoad. This thing can pretty much chip anything in the entire game. This thing hits extremely hard. And if you combine this with Cosmere Unleashed, oh my gosh, you have an unstoppable duo. Like, Specmure is probably one of the best duos in the entire game, and that's not mention how awesome Metatoad is. It's a very good counter for Protagon and Zulong, and it's just really solid. And even though it doesn't run an electric move most of the time, the fact that it can hit everything with Psycho Blast or Psycho Slap, and the fact that there are many ways to actually run a Metatoad, makes this one of the best electric types in the game. It would probably be number 1 if it was, 1, either a little bit faster, 2, if its defensive typing was a little better, or 3, if it actually did, if you weren't forced to run one move with specialization. There is a Watcher Health Amulet Toad, but I didn't find it to be as effective as the specialization 1 or 2 moves. And that's why Metatoad is number 2 on the list. So yeah, the best electric type in Loomian Legacy is Helvantic. It was a close call, but I put it Helvantic number 1. And there's quite a few reasons. It can pretty much hit anything in the game besides Earth types, and even then, Gnarly Gnash and Primal Slash hits them neutrally. You also have the aggressive ability, which is awesome. 130 melee attack, which is the highest on this list for melee attackers, and it has very good bulk with 123 health stat. This thing is extremely scary. And while it doesn't hit as hard as one move specialization Toad, it has amazing coverage, meaning that nothing can swap into a Helvantic. Even though there are a few Earth types that can soak hits like Tyrex and Himber, even then, once you get rid of those and bring Helvantic late game, this thing can absolutely sweep. Has a very good speed stat, hits extremely hard, and while it is quad weak to Earth, it does, other than that, it can do some amazing work. And since it's a toxic type, it can actually get rid of poison barbs. Once you get an aggressive boost, you can pretty much beat anything in the game. There's a lot to love about Helvantic. It definitely deserves to be number 1. It is one of the best late game cleaners in the entire game, and it's the best electric type in the entirety of Loomian Legacy. So yeah, Helvantic. Here it is, the best electric type in all of Loomian Legacy. Hope you guys enjoyed this list of me ranking all of the electric types in Loomian Legacy. If you agree with my list, tell me in the comments below. If you disagree with my list, tell me in the comments below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all all later. Bye-bye!